Today I'm going to be tying a pattern that I like to call the Peachy Keen because it sort of represents the Dorothea sulfur mayfly. The hook I'm using is a Dairiki 270 size 14, and the thread is UTC 70 dark brown. And once you get your thread started, you want to go back to the point of the hook and then back up to about 2 eye lengths behind the eye, which is where you should have started your thread. And then I've prepared a small clump of white bucktail for a parachute post. I'll strip out any uneven hairs and then restack it. I was out on the little gunpowder today, and this pattern was getting a lot of attention, so that's why I decided to make a video on it. So once you have everything stacked, you want to make a parachute post that's about a hook length long, and tie that in. Make sure that it stays on top of the hook shank. If it rotates around, you can easily just push it back to where it should be. And by the time you're done tying it in, it should have moved from 2 to 1 eye lengths behind the eye of the hook. Once you're fairly certain that it's secured down, you can lift the butt ends up and snip them off at a shallow angle. And then cover those with thread wraps to make a gentle ramp down to the hook. Next, you want to take a feather from the outside of a white hackle cape. These feathers tend to have fairly stiff fibers, which is why they're good for tails. And you want a tail that's about a body length long. Tie that in and then snip the butt ends off to get a smooth transition. And I'm just going to spin my thread counterclockwise to uncord it and wrap back up to the parachute and hold the hair back and then start posting it. I like to do this after I have the tail tied in, otherwise it gets a little tricky when checking the length of the tail. So once you've got that posted, I've gone about maybe a few 1/16ths of an inch up the post. You can wrap your thread back to just in front of the hook point. And the dubbing blend I have is a mix of cream synthetic yarn the whitish fur from the cheeks of a hare's mask, and fire orange and pink Antron dubbing. And when it's wet, it turns a beautiful shade of sort of a peach orange. So you want to make dubbing noodle about 3 inches, fairly thin, and start that right at the base of the tail and wrap forward. I'm going to put just a bit more on. And the reason why I put a synthetic yarn in this is because it really gets thin. It makes it really easy to get a thin dubbing noodle on your thread. It acts a lot like super fine dubbing in that way. Once you've got the abdomen complete, I'm going to take a medium done feather from a dry fly hackle. Make sure it's the right size. You want to size this for a 16 since it's a bit smaller than the hook. You're not using the full hook for this fly. Cut the lower webby fibers off and strip about an 1/8 inch off, or strip an 1/8 of an inch of fibers off the stem, and then about a 1/16 off from the bottom, and then turn it so that the dull side is facing you, and then tie that in with nice tight wraps to make sure that it doesn't come undone. You can start securing it to the post after that. And I'm going to take some more of the same dubbing. I like to bundle a small clump together and then mix it by hand a few times before applying it to the thread, just to really mix it up super well. And then once you've got a thin dubbing noodle about 1 inch long, you can start wrapping that up by the eye and going back. And of course, apply dubbing as you need it. Just gonna check how the other side looks. There we go. So once you've gotten the whole thing to your liking, you want to have your thread in front of the wing post on the near side of the hook. You can then start wrapping the hackle down the post. I like fairly heavy hackled parachutes, but of course, if you prefer to go easier on the wraps, you can. So once you've got the hackle wrapped all the way down, secure it to the post and snip off the excess. And then I like to whip finish around the post itself, which can be a bit tricky. But with a little bit of practice, it gets pretty easy. And it keeps anything from really clogging up the eye. So once you've cut your thread off, you have a Peachy Keen. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.